what's up, chat? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical today, and we're in that kind of mid, I don't know, between season doldrums right now, where this week is kind of listless. We're just kind of hanging out, playing old formats and waiting for new formats to be fully released so we can actually play them and figure them out. I've been playing lots of Prestream Nexus over the weekend and the end of last week, and that's mostly taken up my time. But today we're gonna dive back a little bit into the mists of time and talk a little bit about some Leviathan lists, because we had a huge weekend last week for Leviathan with multiple Supermajors. Atlantic City Open and the Bristol Supermajor both went down this weekend. And from those events, we got some pretty sweet lists that will probably survive the transition. So depending on what the Balance Data Slate does, we will these lists are cool. So we're going to talk about cool lists. That's what's going on. Thanks everyone for coming and hanging out. Welcome everybody in chat. Jasper bringing mostly Nurgle Demons to a tournament this weekend. Hell yeah, dude. Nurgle Demons definitely feels like, I think, probably one of the better varieties of demons. I know Nick Nanavati is playing them for team events, and like we've done some funny sort of list compositions with just a billion Great Unclean Ones and things like that. And I think the Great Unclean One profile is definitely one of the strongest ones in demons. Whether or not the other Nurgle stuff is gonna hold up, that's the question of the day, but, you know, we'll see. Yeah, so I've gone through the lists for the two big events for this weekend, and I've picked out some pretty rad ones to talk about, which make me happy, and that's mostly what we're going to be doing today. There's Madness of Chaos Cultists. So that's on the roster. So that's Derek Apshee, who ran a Chaos Cult for Atlantic City Open. It's a pretty funny juxtaposition. So most of the lists that I've picked out so far today are from ACO, from Atlantic City Open, because it seems to... Oh, God, what's my camera doing? Jesus Christ. All right. Because it seems to me that... I don't know what it is. People over in the UK... You got to be more creative with your lists. I think this 5-0 not make top cut has rotted your soul, because you have to play the best shit. Otherwise, you don't get good placing. And Atlantic City Open definitely felt a little bit more open to some like wild jank, which is I'm very excited to talk about for sure. All right. So I guess, like, without further ado, let's dive in. Oh, I guess maybe just in terms of a little bit of sort of announcements. I have a lot of streaming going on tomorrow. So if anybody's interested in just having a chill day of 40K streams over on the Twitchies, I will be live on Twitch starting in the basically 9 a.m. in the morning through most of the day, because I have a game scheduled in the morning on Pariah Nexus. So we're going to be playing new missions and stuff, and that's for the Pariah Nexus event that's currently ongoing in the server, the Discord server. And it's Chaos Demons versus an Ironstorm Spearhead. I don't know. I don't think it's going to go very well, chat, but I believe in myself. Maybe we can get super lucky and make every invulnerable save known to man. In addition, we will also be streaming a pod finals almost immediately after that. There'll be a short break, and then we'll have a pod finals after that. So lots of streaming going on tomorrow. That's what's going on. That's what's up. That's the streams happening. But anyway, let's dive into frickin' some lists and stuff. So what I have chosen here is to jump through some of these ACO lists. Where do we want to start, chat? I think we'll start kind of soft. Sasha Alexander Edelkraut went 7-1 with Black Templars and a pretty wild Black Templars list. He and for those who have not watched the stream before, Sasha Alexander Eaterkraut I've had on the stream at the Battle for Salvation last November, I want to say, and he was present at the DreamHack Invitational. He was playing for, I want to say he was playing for Team Art of War. I believe that that's the case. And he is a Space Marine extraordinaire. I know that traditionally he likes to play Imperial Fists. Obviously, Imperial Fists are a little bit awkward sometimes to play because they don't have as much support as other chapters. But obviously, Black Templars, just fine. They're an Imperial Fist successor chapter, and they're real good. And he was playing a Black Templars Gladius Task Force. So we weren't in Righteous Crusaders, and we weren't in the stupid Ironstorm Spearhead list where you take 5 Repulsor Executioners. We were playing regular old vanilla Spec Marines, running a Fire Discipline combo with an Apothecary Biologus, and he was attached into... I want to say it's an Eradicator squad. Yeah, he was attached into a big 6-man Eradicator squad. So benefit there is that those guys get built-in rerolls when targeting vehicles, so you don't need to Oath of Moment the thing that you're eradicating, which can make the Fire Discipline combo really kind of counter-synergistic with melee stuff. Because a lot of times what you'll be doing is putting the Oath on whatever you're about to Fire Discipline into... the stratosphere, and then your melee guys go in and they're like, boss, I don't have any rerolls, and it's probably Devastator Doctrine, so I'm not that good at fighting anyway. But being able to put Oath on whatever your lighter guns or your melee's killing, and then have the Eradicators reroll naturally makes them very good into a variety of targets. They're actually not too bad into lighter targets too, if they've got Oath on them, if you do have the Oath available. Now, the rest of the list is basically just a huge Rhino rest. We have a Razorback, and I don't know who's going. I guess we're putting a Devastator squad in the Razorback probably for fire support, I think is going to be the game plan. We could also, I believe, put Crusaders into it as well. But Razorback is criminally underplayed, in my opinion. The downside of the Razorback is that it being a Firstborn transport can only put Firstborn Marines into its transport capacity, so you can't put things like Infernus Marines or Hellblasters, the stuff that you would really want to fire support into them. You have to take the crappy Firstborn Marines, but that means it is good at transporting around Devastator squads, which I've done in the past. Yeah, so... I don't know. Razorback's kind of rad. I wish they were slightly cheaper. The chassis itself doesn't feel like it's worth 95 points because it's like a side grade from a Rhino. You get a gun in exchange for less transport capacity, which feels like a pretty sweet thing. And I guess you're paying 20 points for the fire support, but the units that you're embarking are usually overcosted anyway. So I don't know. I'm not sure. And it's a pretty good gun, but it's not a great gun. You're not that excited about a single twin link las cannon, to be fair. All right, we've then got a Judiciar with the Honor Vehement. I think probably going into an Assault Intercessor squad. I'm not really sure where else this guy would jump into. He could maybe get into the... Can he join Infernus Marines? Because there is an Infernus squad. I actually did not look that up. I actually have him open. He could. So that might be the case. That unit becomes legitimately difficult to engage into. I guess the Infernus Marines themselves aren't good at punching, but the Judiciar with Fights First and Honor Vehement, so he's between 5 and 7 attacks at Strength 8. It's pretty solid, but he's probably in an Assault Intercessor squad to give him wound rerolls. But it just is, I guess, a cheap and cheerful melee option, probably, is why he's in there. The Fights First from the Judiciar never feels, particularly exciting, but against stuff like Orcs, it might be if they don't have any way to interact with them without charging, then it's maybe good. And I guess it's good into... Warp Talons, because they can't really interact with his unit because the Judiciar will just kill them before they get to do anything. So I guess his stock is maybe going up if we're in kind of a melee-oriented meta with Gaz Base Marines and Orcs doing stuff. And I guess, to lesser sense, Sisters of Battle with their Penitent detachments and things. Fights First might also be useful moving on into Pariah Nexus. So maybe Judiciars to coming off the shelf. That's kind of sweet. And then we have a bunch of Crusaders. 1, 2, 3, 4 Crusaders. These guys are usually in here in order to double a jump into the Rhinos, and then you can fire 2 multi-meltas out of the top of the Rhino. And you have pretty good firepower and melee once you disembark them as well. And then we had 2 10-man Primaris Crusader squads, I think just ground pounding. On top of that, we had 1 million utility units, 15 jump pack assault intercessors. I think these guys are going to be super useful next edition, or next season in Pryonexes, because they are really good at doing actions. The downside of actions currently is you can't advance and do them with basically anyone, unless you get the battle line enhancement in one of the mission cards. So having a high base movement utility unit is way more valuable than it was in the past. Previously, you would just take scouts, and they would be like, all right, I get infiltrate, I get scout, and I can advance d6 plus 6 inches into an action. That's fine. The assault intercessors just move 12. They don't get all the other forward operation benefits, but they can move 12 and still do actions, and that's enormous. That's so huge. Damn Legion 40K, what's up, dude? How's it going? Nice to see you. Yeah, then we've got the Infernus squad that we talked about before. Super interesting inclusion here. There's probably a little bit of justification. I've been noticing that there's more kind of like lighter transport stuff that is being played right now. So you can see things like Eldari and Drukhari, who are getting a lot of play, and also, you know, not to mention orcs, for example. And these guys being able to rock up in an impulsor and fire off the top with a bunch of the pyroblasters is, I think, a pretty big deal, because you can pop their transport, make them disembark, and then kill them with the Infernus Marines. And I think that might be why we're taking these dudes. Not to mention the fact that they're kind of an Overwatch threat if you just push them and then disembark with them with the move and disembark rule that the. Then we've got 2 scout squads and Voidsmen at Arms. So a huge rush of dudes. It's 2 Rhinos, an Impulsor, and a Razorback. So 4 transports. And then 1 million Space Marine infantry. Assault intercessors, 4 Crusaders, so 25. 45 with the Primaris Crusaders. 60 with the Assault intercessors. 71... 76, 86 infantry plus the Voidsmen, so like 91 infantry models in a Space Marine army plus 2 characters. 91 infantry models, chat. An absolute insane list from this man, but clearly effective. Lots of transports is good. It's like works in basically all phases. The Devastator, the Lascannon Devastator squad plus the Razorback is kind of a pretty impactful threat. You can use that as your long gun, essentially. So for the cost of like 205 points, you basically get like a Lancer plus, right? They're 120, 215 points, I guess. You get a, you can oath whatever you're shooting at long distance. Full reroll a las cannon and a hunter killer into them from, I guess the hunter killer doesn't get wound rerolls, but the las cannon does. From the Razorback, disembark the Devastator squad, storm of fire them, so you can get ignore cover and potentially AP4 if you don't need it on any of the other units, which you probably don't. And then full reroll because of fire support. So 4 additional las cannons, 1 automatically hits thanks to the Cherub. And then you get 4 strength 12 wound rerolling that probably punch through armor if you storm of firing. So these guys are like probably good to just like clip out a vehicle or something, right? Like sort of randomly. And then if you can't deal with them, which oftentimes you can't, especially if you're in Assault Doctrine, you can sort of advance them around and get them in weird positions. If you can peek lines of sight, you can clip out a vehicle off the side and then re-embark them next turn and do it again and just keep going. Or just like squad tactics them back into the Razorback if your opponent gives you the opportunity to. There's a lot of options with this unit. So it's really cool. That gives the army really flexible long-range punch. And then the rest of it's just like a ton of utility and little light stuff that can go in and mess with your opponent. Looks super dynamic to play. Very, very flexible and lots of different opportunities. So yeah, I mean, part of it, the fact that it's a Horde Space Marine army, chat, is mostly that it's Black Templars, right? Which, to be fair, is thematically appropriate. For the most part, Space Marines have a tough time fielding that volume of units, or volume of models, unless you're playing specifically Black Templars, because they get access to the Primaris Crusader squad, which is one of the most efficient ways to get Space Marine bodies on the table. Because 5 of them are neophytes, but they're the same cost as a tactical squad, essentially, for a more aggressive melee unit. They have Scout, they have a bunch of melee attacks. They have 1 trillion melee attacks, in fact. 5 attacks apiece. They're insanely efficient. And then the basic Crusader squads are also very efficient, just sort of heavy weapon teams, the Melty-Gun and Multi-Melta. So most of the time, you either can't or won't bring that many Space Marine infantry into a list, but Black Templars are very unique in that they're one of the only chapters that does it, which I think is extremely appropriate because that's their thing, right? Black Templars are like 6 times as big as any of the other chapters and play like huge like hordes of idiots running across the table. Isn't that their whole shtick? I don't know lore stuff. Somebody in the chat can tell me about lore. But that list is rad. Second place in a super major at 7-1. Super cool. There was also another list that I want to talk about, which I noted down here. There's a couple lists actually. Before we get to, we'll get to Mawlocs in a section. I promise we'll talk about Mawlocs, but I want to talk about them momentarily because we have a little bit of spice from Thousand Suns. Not a faction that you would expect to see spice from, but I've been evangelizing, and to be fair, it's mostly from like Cascade Clash is where we first started seeing these styles of Thousand Suns lists. These real defense skew Thousand Suns lists. I played a bunch of games with them. I think this style of list is rad, and I made a Patreon video about it. But yeah, here's what the deal is. So we're taking Ahriman on a disc. We have a unit of 10 Warp Flamer Rubric Marines, which I think is just Ahriman's sort of bodyguard. He's going to jump into them and give them +1 to wound, and they're just like a one-hit wonder. Ahriman just stands behind a ruin in the middle of the table. Your opponent runs in to try to counteract your really resilient front line, and Ahriman pops out, twists of fate you, and kills whatever it is in the middle. He kills Land Raiders. He kills fucking anything. He kills the world with those 10 Rubric Marines. So he's the counterpunch. We've got Magnus in there, of course. We've got a Zangor Shaman with Athenaean Scrolls, so he's your backline objective holder. He goes to Cabal points too, thanks to the scrolls, so he's just shoring up your Cabal point generation, because this list doesn't generate a ton, because you don't have many Psychers in it. We have an Infernal Master with Umbrillific Crystal, who's basically a utility unit. He can jump in and out and be hard to kill, because you can Weaver of Fates a save reroll. CP reroll a save reroll. If you're banking 1 trillion Cabal points, you can save reroll twice, because you can reuse or command reroll on him. And he can Glimpse of Eternity when it saves to an auto pass, and you can pay a CP to turn a failed save into 0 damage. So he can jump into your opponent's side of the table and just stand there. Your opponent has to like dramatically overcommit to kill this dude in order to actually get rid of him, because he's so annoying. And he's like constantly just going in and killing all their little like utility units with his flamer and stuff. We have no Arcane Vortex. Oh, fucking. Excuse me, chat. I'm going to turn my phone off. There's a emergency services outage in my area, and they've been pushing Amber Alerts all day. It's been very annoying. Just to remind people not to use 911, which seems like a pretty bad thing. I don't know. That's kind of not the greatest thing ever. Yeah, only run 1 Rubric Squad, chat. Only the 1. Plus, we have a Demon Prince with Lord of Forbidden Lore, so he can usually double movement. Usually you want to double move everyone up the table. He can also duplicate Weaver of Fates, so you can kind of compound the resilience of the army. Although, again, we don't have too many Cabal points in this list. It's assuming that everyone's on the table. It's 3 from Ahriman, 2 from the Infernal Master, so 5. 9 with Magnus, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, so it's a decent number. You could double move twice and drop 2 Weavers down, which seems pretty good if you need to. We then have sort of limited utility. We just have the Zangor Enlightened for utility, but then the beef of the list is 3 Mutalised Vortex Beasts and 2 Forge Fiends. So the Forge Fiends can add some really, really good backline shooting. They're 36-inch range, just really great at clearing infantry, sort of heavy infantry with the big ectoplasma. Strength 10, EP 3 damage. Very good against heavy infantry targets. But also, even just like a brick of 20 dudes, they'll blast 4 times. So they'll clip out 10 Orc Boys or whatever on a shot, which is pretty solid if you're in a unit of 20. The 3 Mutalised Vortex Beasts are good into literally whatever profile you're attacking them with. So they're super sticky to kill for 165. They have 13 wounds with a 5-up invuln that again is rerollable thanks to multiple uses of Weaver of Fates, and they have a 5-up Feel No Pain. Plus, if they're standing next to the Demon Prince, they have stealth as well, so they're also -1 to be hit by ranged attacks. And then coming into them, they have a Flamer, a Blast Weapon, and a Railgun shot. They can choose one of the 3, so they're good at fighting basically anything, and they do mortal wounds in an aura too. So they're always good at dealing damage. They're relatively fast, and they're hard to kill. So they're your big front line. You're meant to have enemies come out, impact them, and then get counterpunched by the Rubric Marines and by Magnus, and basically just try to kill everything that can kill Magnus, and he runs the game in the late game. He just staples himself to the Demon Prince and gets stealth, and nobody can kill him once it comes to like turn 3 onwards. But these, yeah, I like these. I love these lists. I love the big monster mash list. It's so cool. The downside, I think, is that it runs into like assassination plus bring it down. But I wonder if that's actually just a trap, because you're probably not going to kill Magnus. You'll almost certainly kill the Mutalised Vortex Beast by the end of the game. But the Forge Fiends very rarely go down because they're standing so far back. And again, like the killing Magnus is usually tough. So you might only get 3 kills in assassination, and then the hope is that the Thousand Suns with their double moving can beat you on tacticals anyway. But yeah, no, I freaking love this list, chat. Super cool. All right, we're moving down the line. The last thing I want to talk about before we get to the real spice is David Adelman, who I streamed at Richmond Open. Also went undefeated, or not undefeated. He went 7-1, excuse me, top 8 with Chaos Demons, and he had a fairly spicy Chaos Demons list. This is another list. My biases are prevalent here. My biases are on display because this is another list that's based around a combo that I think is the greatest thing ever. It has 2 Rendmasters on Blood Thrones, so he's running 4 Greater Demons, Bellicor, Scarbrand for just a big counterpunch, plus he gets +1 attack to non-monster Khorne units in an aura, so he can buff up these Bloodletters that we have in the list. There's 2 Bloodletters in this list, chat. So this was 7-1 as Supermajor, there's 20 Bloodletters in it. Plus Endless Giftguard and Clean One and the Lord of Change with Everstave. You probably, like, you're contractually obligated to take these guys if you're playing Demons, I think. You go to a new recruit and make a new army, and they're already added in. And then the 2 Rendmasters on Blood Thrones. So the weird thing about the Rendmasters is that they have a buff for Khorne Demons that is not an aura. There's a stupid data sheet. Which means, explicitly, this was originally implicit in the rules. It never said that they didn't stack. There was only effects labeled aura specifically didn't stack in the core rules on release. But as of the January data slate, these explicitly stack. If you have multiple instances of the Blood Throne ability, you can point multiple Rendmasters at a single enemy unit and stack their strength, AP, and damage buff. Which means with 2 Rendmasters, you can be +2 strength, +2 AP, +2 damage. So that pushes, if I remember correctly, Bloodletters to strength 7, AP 4 damage with potential wound rerolls. You're probably wounding on 4s or 5s. You're getting base rerolls of 1. You're probably not fully rerolling unless you've shot them with Everstave beforehand. But you mostly don't need that because almost all the time you only need 2 conversions to kill your opponent. So, like, basically, almost regardless of what you're attacking, right? You need like 3 or 4 of your 20 attacks to go through, and basically whatever you charged is dead. Unless you're charging into a knight, in which case you probably soften them up with Everstave, and you might even turn on your wound rerolls. That's so silly. It also works on the little units. The Fleshhounds can also double stack up to +2 strength, +2 AP, +2 damage. adorable. It's wonderful. I like the Fleshhounds as the delivery system for this because they're much faster, but the Bloodletters also have those wound rerolls, and most of the time they're a lot easier to get multiple models into engagement because they have a smaller base size. The Fleshhounds usually get stuck on each other a little bit, especially if you're running units of 10. So you could also do it to Scarbrand too if you really feel like you need to be strength 18, AP 6, 8 damage. Or you can split them up, and they also work on themselves too. So the Rendmaster datasheet is actually pretty good just in general. He's got 9 attacks and gets rerolls against monsters or characters. So like even if he just buffs himself once or twice, he kind of goes insane too. So we're mostly playing like keep clicking the wrong list, chat. We're mostly playing like normal demon stuff and then punching with these insane corn like wombo combos, which I super love. That's rad. So I think Space Wolves are actually OP. They're in an interesting place being top of the win rate, but 22-26 in play rate. I don't know what that means, but I do think that they are too strong. I think their Stormlance list is too strong specifically. I think Space Wolves and other detachments are probably fine, but their Stormlance list is, like, I think demonstrably too good. It's much... I think its conversion to like, X1 is probably way too high. Although I haven't done the, the math on exactly how good it is. We have not gone through the Chaos Cultist list, but it sounds like that's what we want to do next. Yeah. So I want to talk about this one because I love the Rendmaster combo. So that's where we're at. But we have Vanguard Onslaught to talk about with a bunch of Mawlocs, and we also have some sick Chaos Cultists. So I talked about, and I think I'm going to. Excuse me, everybody. I think I'm going to bring up my hacked codex here. We mathed out the Chaos Cult combos when we did the initial sort of like breakdown of the detachments in the book. And you could basically kill like mostly anything in the game if you fully wombo comboed out an Accursed Cultist unit with all of the enhancements in the stratagems that the Chaos Cult detachment has, and with a Dark Apostle specifically, I think a little bit harder to deliver them with the Apostle versus the Dark Commune, but he does do a lot more damage, and interestingly, he has the ability to automatically kill models in his own unit, which turns on a lot of their synergies too. Hey, 40k Dirtbags in the chat. What's up, dude? How's it going? This one's yours? Hell yeah. So, yeah, anyway, we're talking about Derek Apshee's Chaos Cult this time around. Switching no bell on the Guo? No. You basically never take the bell on the Guo. It's almost always flail. The bell, I think, is specifically only... I don't even remember what the bell does. It's like been so long since I played one. It is so limited in its usefulness that you're almost never taking one. But the flail gives you, because he's a monster, he can fire the flail at melee. So he's always getting attacks out of that thing, versus having like an inferior melee weapon that has like an additional sort of funny ability. All right, so we're rocking Cypher in this list, plus a Dark Apostle with the Amulet of Tainted Vigor, which gives you a D3 regen onto the Apostle's unit in your command phase. He's also got 2 Dark Communes and Fabulous Bill over here, who I don't know if we have an attachment for, so he's probably just by himself because he's really hard to kill. He gets a 0 on a failed saving throw, 0 damage on a failed saving throw every turn, and has a 2+ regen if you kill him. So he's actually basically just a lone operative because your opponent never wants to attack him. He's kind of like Brother Captain Stern out of, or Celeste, well, those you know, regenning characters that are super tough to kill. You can just put an objective or go do a tactical with, and they just won't die in the swing back, basically. Which is just useful for 85 points. You might as well have that. And we also got Cypher in there too for an actual lone operative as well. So we're protecting our backline pretty effectively. We're then running 2 10-man cultists. 3 10-man cultists and 2 20-man cultists, plus 3 Trader Guardsmen squads. I kind of like the Trader Guardsmen, by the way, because they're slightly stickier to kill than I think people expect them to be in the center of the table. Their benefit is that when they're touching an objective, they get cover permanently. So when they're running out in the middle and like screening or perform like getting like basic bitch secondaries, like when you're getting like secure no man's land or deploying teleport homers or some stuff like that, and they're strung out between objectives, they're actually a 4-up base save essentially, which makes them harder to remove than you would expect. Most of the time, like regular ass chaos cultists just vaporize immediately, but the Trader Guardsmen out in the open are actually a little bit tougher to kill. Plus they get grenade launchers and stuff, which is kind of nice, which the normal cultists I just don't get anymore. Which is a little bit sad. They used to have like the flamer dude and the grenade launcher dude, but I think that they just axed all of those in the codex, which is really sad. We think I kind of 1 chaos rhino plus 3 16-mans of accursed cultists. So our attachments are 2 dark communions and 1 dark apostle that we're probably putting into. If I hazard a guess, we're probably putting them into the accursed cultist units to buff up their own attacks. And then we had a bunch of utility coming out of demons. Demonettes are interesting. That's a pretty spicy pick there. And I wonder if 40k Dirtbags, if you're in chat, if you could illuminate us on the demonette tech. But the Seekers are super fast scouts, so they're really good at controlling the midboard. They can sort of prevent a lot of aggressive enemies from touching you and take a lot of table space. Nurglings are just good. I don't know if we have to talk about that. I guess like these are 110 points and they get an instrument, so they're +1 to charge. So they're very good at just stealing objectives away from people and have like a reasonable boat of attacks there. Oh, it's the Seekers tax. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess you have to have them in order for the in order to get the Seekers. Yeah, that follows. Hey, Displeasing with the advanced tactics. Thank you so much. Thanks for jumping in, my guy. Cheers. Learn that should have started everything on the board. Death Shroud should not have been in Deep Strike. Yeah, it's the amount of board control from this style of army is like absolutely nuts. Because the Accursed Cultists, although I think they lose it if you attach with them, right? Which we could have maybe not done. I don't know. I don't know exactly where all the attachments go. The Accursed Cultists, if I remember correctly, have scouts baked in, right? In the new codex. So you're scouting potentially like 40 models. Like right up the table. What's up, everybody? Death Guard didn't leave the deployment zone until turn 5. And that sounds about right. Have I lost the Accursed Cultist data sheet? What have I done with my life? Alright, I don't know what I did with this thing. Sorry, chat. I'm just trying to verify what I'm not lying to you. I can't find their stupid data sheet in my codex. Do I have it? Am I a crazy person? Am I an insane human being? Maybe I just don't have it. I don't know. Weird. I don't know what I've done. Enhancement for the Dark Communist Scout as well. Oh yeah. So yeah, with Warped Foresight. Is that what they've got? Yeah. And then the other guy has +1 +1 strength and +1 attack. +1 strength if you've lost a model, +1 attacks if you've lost multiple. If you're below half strength, which is basically automatic, right? Because you have a very good chance of hurting yourself with your desperate pacts. Not to mention the fact that you can force additional desperate pacts with stratagems too. So you have a million ways to make them much better. So you can get potentially +1 attacks and strength. You can get +1. You can auto deal mortal wounds with Infernal Sacrifice to get +1 attacks and a potential +1 strength. So you're up to +2 strength, +1 attacks. You can also get +1. Oh, I think that's it, actually. Yeah, you can buff your shooting attacks, but that one doesn't really matter so much. Oh, you can reroll. You can reroll hits and wounds. That's the other thing you can do. So you can be +2 strength, +1 attack potentially, and reroll hits and wounds, assuming that your dark packs don't go poorly. And you can automatically turn on Incendiary Goad because one of those automatically deals mortal wounds. And if you fail any of the dark pack checks, you potentially take additional mortal wounds. Not to mention the fact that you're also +2 to charge if you desperate pact in the charge phase. The commune can give you an additional +1 to hit and wound and advance and charge. So you're moving, but you potentially, right? You're 6-inch scouting on one of the units, moving 6, advancing, charging at +2 with +1 to hit and wound. That one's only +1 strength, not +2. The other one that follows them up is an additional +2 strength, or an additional +1 strength on top of that. And I think that if you got all of the dark pacts off, plus you're also getting sort of the base dark pact bonuses, right? You're also getting sustained or lethal based on whatever you need. We mathed that a unit of accursed cultists with the full combo assembled, it kills a knight fairly reliably, I think was the math. Now obviously it's a little bit awkward because you're taking so many leadership checks, of any of which fail can mess up your bonuses, but the potential damage is absolutely insane just from accursed cultists just beating on you with their silly wiggly tentacle arms. The full rerolls is the only strat you really use. Rapid grenades, reroll charges. Yeah, I guess it's hard to screen out the rapid ingresses, right? When you're taking so much table presence with all of the shit that's in, you're just forcing into the center of the table. So that makes total sense too. And I guess if assembling additional bonuses for your guys only really matter if you're into things that are either just totally undamaged and really resilient to begin with. For the most part, if you're just bouncing into little 5 or 10 man units, the buffed up accursed cultists will kill them basically regardless. And you can also get regular rerolls out of the 20 men cultist mobs will probably kill a lot of that utility stuff pretty easily too. Just rapid ingress the squad with the +1 every game. That makes sense. Yeah, if they can't scout, you might as well. And the reason they can't scout, by the way, chat, just for the folks in, I know somebody's going to drop a comment. The Dark Commune itself does not have the scout ability. And so if they join a unit with scout, scout requires that every model in the unit have the ability. So they actually remove scout from the unit. That's also the case for Phobos librarians if they join in cursors, for example. Just remove scout from the unit too. A little bit of anti-synergy there, but at least the detachment has an enhancement to bring it back. And it's the same for the Dark Apostle. He'll also do the same thing, basically, too. Yeah, I think Chaos Cult is, like, it's probably the sleeper out of the codex. Like, everyone's talked about Soulforge Warpack and Pact-Bound Zealots and Renegade Raiders to death. But, I mean, we talked about it when the codex came out. Like, there is, like, a lot of power in this detachment. It's just a question of whether you want to play it, right? Because I think it's going to be kind of like the unending swarm effect. We should call that, like, the swarm effect. The Green Tide effect. Although, it's a little different for Green Tide because people actually want to play 1,000 orcs. But, like, you know, are you prepared? Are you mentally prepared to put however many models this is? It's, what, 48 Accursed Cultists plus 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 120. So it's like 168, 178 infantry on the table. Are you ready to do that to yourself? I mean, probably. You're like, it's good for sure, and it's gonna stat check a lot of people directly out of the game. But I think there's a lot of people who probably don't necessarily want to do it. They want to play the more elite armies. 208 models. Hell yeah. Let's go. Take away the 2 20-man squads, and they can only get 15 on the new Horde secondary. Do they even score it? Does it count? So if you take the 2 20-mans away, right? Does it count the Accursed Cultist? How many wins does a Torment have? They have 3, so that's 18. I guess they're 28, so they can only score off the Accursed Cultist units. Yeah. I guess so, yeah, that makes sense. Real challenge is to run the list is is the core strength. Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's a lot of people's problem with these like insane horde lists. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of like really cool innovation to be had in the Chaos Space Marine Codex that people haven't really plumbed yet. Everyone's on like, you know, oh, we're taking Vindicators and Forge Fiends and Warp Talons or whatever. And you're like, okay. But there definitely are. There's a lot of units in that codex that aren't seeing play yet. 74 models in reserves each game. Just wait until you get that. Just wait until you get that. The mission ability where you can reserve on turn 1 with your battle line units. I guess it only works on your reinforcement steps, so you can't ramp it ingress turn 1, but. It is good for, like, dropping 10-mans off the side of the table, which is kind of nice. But that's sweet. Congratulations on going freaking 7-1. Top 4 at ACO with a sick off-the-wall list. Good at scoring as well. And I think it's also going to be a list that's fairly good at Pariah Nexus. The one thing that it... like, I guess with enough scouts and forward operators, you're pretty good at... performing actions in the center of the table early. The downside of the format right now I've seen is that you can't really like. It's hard to deploy. You know, if you get like cleanse or something, turn 1. Sometimes you're just out of position if you don't deploy on the line. But if you have a lot of stuff that like moves before the game starts, then you're probably good to go. So it's probably going to be good in Pariah Nexus, I think, for sure. Would love to see somebody figure out a competitive Deceptors list. I played against Deceptors on stream earlier this week, and it was an interesting game. I think it's going to go up on the channel. There's some edits I have to make to it, but it should be up on the channel either tomorrow or on Thursday. And that's, I don't know, it gets pretty close to being like a pretty good list. But Deceptors is basically like a similar vibe, but you just don't get the damage out of it. You're forward deploying like a bunch of shit, so you're really like determining the tempo of the game. But if you don't go first, it kind of sucks, which is unfortunate. And whereas a list like this, it feels like you have so many fast models and you have so many like just so much presence on the table that you can probably like you hold back one of the Accursed Cultist squads and you can run in and just get 15 on behind or bottom round 5 scoring. like pretty reliably, I think, with the high OC stuff. All right, chat. So let's close things out here for this event by talking some Tyranids. So everybody pinged me when this list was submitted. Matt Laura was in Tyranids, and he was in my chat on Monday, I want to say yesterday, and we were talking about this list. We had a little conflict about Mawlocs. He's super high on the Mawlocs. He said the Mawlocs were incredible. I was surprised to hear that, but we can talk about that. So he's running Vanguard Onslaught. So the detachment that gives you advance and charge on your Vanguard units. And you get a bunch of lone operative effects. So it's good for delivering the Tyranid warriors, it allows them to advance and charge if they have an attached winged Tyranid prime. And it also protects your lone operative stuff. So Neurolictors and Lictors can hold objectives, and you potentially can't attack them unless you're within 6 inches of them, which makes them basically uninteractable, almost entirely uninteractable by Deep Strikers, and uninteractable by a lot of other stuff. So they're really difficult to sort of deal with. The list was running Death Leaper, so we had Death Leaper plus 3 Lictors, excuse me, so 4 total Lictors plus 2 Neurolictors. So we had 6 lone operative individual infantry. A Neuro Tyrant with Neuro Node, so that lets you redeploy Vanguard Invaders before the game begins. It's after the first turn roll-off, so it's the good version of this ability. And it lets you, importantly, play really aggressively with your Infiltrators in order to, like, move block enemies or block out other Infiltrators, and then you can redeploy based on how your opponent sets up. So that's like hugely powerful. You can just pull your units back. You can also put them into reserve, and Lictors specifically can rapid ingress for free. So you can set up situations where you block out all your opponent's Infiltrators and then lose the roll to go first, and the Lictors just go into reserve and then rapid ingress back in later on in the game, which is super nice. We then have Old One Eye, who I think he doesn't have an attached a Carnifex unit to jump into, I don't believe. Yeah, so he's just by himself. He's kind of a little bit of a melee counterpunch. The downside of the Vanguard Onslaught is that it hits with the sort of illimitable punching power of a wet paper bag. So Old One Eye in there can help you crack armor. I mean, he's like the best armor cracking individual model in 40k, or in the Tyranid Codex, I should say. He's basically like their only access to AP3, which is a little bit sad to say. The downside is that he's a little inconsistent. He is, I believe, only a base 3+ weapon skill, and most of the time he is relying on his leadership ability, to give him hit rerolls, since when he's leading a unit, the entire unit gets reroll hits, which is rad, and then he gets sort of baked in. He gets wound regeneration, so he is difficult to kill. He's a base 2+ save with a 5+ Feel No Pain and regenerates wounds each command phase, so he can regenerate up to twice per battle round. Oops. But the downside is that he doesn't really have any way to improve his accuracy beyond that. So he has a pretty reasonable chance of just flubbing out super hard, which kind of sucks. And I don't believe that there is any other way to buff him in the detachment besides stuff that already exists. So you can like get +1 to wound on him from a Neurolictor, for example. But you can't use surprise ambush on him because that requires that you are a Vanguard Invader. Yeah, so he doesn't really have any synergy, really. He can strategic reserve on turn 1, which I guess is cool. But it only works on your turn, so you can't rapid ingress with him. So, like, I don't know. I think he's efficient as a combat character for his points, but he's definitely not like a solve for cracking armor, unfortunately. I think Tyranids need a little bit more help in that arena in order to be able to do stuff. There's also 30 Barb Gaunts. I like these guys quite a bit. They are very good as sort of an infantry answer. They can certainly help out the like the Orc matchup, for example, because they slow enemies down, they suppress them when they shoot them, and each of them fires D6 blast attack. So against big units of 10 or 20 people, the unit is firing like up to potentially like 40 plus 10 D6, so averaging like 70-ish shots against big units of 20. So these guys just like mince through Orc boys, or potentially even Chaos Cultists if you give them a shot, and that's just a constant danger you have to be worried about. Not to mention the fact that they're really cheap for that volume of shooting, and they're cheap enough that you can kind of just sort of plow them into almost any target and be expected to do a little bit of damage, especially if you have Battle Shock them and your Neurolictor auras on, then they're +1 to wound. So you're forcing potentially like 40 shots with +1 to wound on your opponent, which is huge. We've then got the 3 Lictors that we mentioned, 1 Biovore for scoring, as is normal, and then 3 Mawlocs. So big, sort of annoying to kill idiots that can deep strike in. The other benefit that they give you is more instances of forcing Battle Shock. So you can force Battle Shock a bunch of different times with Vanguard Onslaught. You can do it with the Neurolictors themselves. The Surprise Assault stratagem also can force it in both the shooting and the fight phases. And once you get Death Leaper up near your opponent, all those Battle Shock tests are at -1. And any one of those failures will not only stop you from using stratagems, but they will also trigger the Neurolictor aura. So if you need to kill somebody with all these little crappy guns, getting +1 to wound on them is huge. And then the Mawlocs can pop up, and I believe that their ability triggers, they're going to give you D3 mortal wounds, and then they have a bonus, I think, on a 4+ to do a flat 3, and also a Battle Shock chest. Oh, excuse me, a 5-up, to do a Battle Shock chest. So they are likely going to do 3 mortal wounds, and there is a chance that they'll force an additional Battle Shock check, which is good, but it is only a 5-up. The other weird thing about the Mawloc that it has been, I don't know, it's been frustrating for me every time I've played with them. And I've basically never seen success with this unit, and I don't really understand why they get seen with so much play, is that their ability triggers within 12 inches of themselves, but they don't have any ability to deep strike closer than normal. What they can do is they can rapid ingress in funny positions, so they can rapid ingress in and then force their ability in their opponent's movement phase, which is really good if they can force Battle Shock checks on you. But they don't actually hit everyone within 12 inches of them, because they have to be 9 inches away from enemies. So they only hit a little 3-inch band around, between 9 and 12 inches is the band around them that they actually hit. And more often than not, you'll only be getting 1, maybe 2 units inside that little band, and have them in a relevant position in the table too. So that's been the weird thing for Mawlocs with me. I guess they do get a little bit of synergy in the detachment, in that they can deep strike turn 1 for a command point. So you could maybe deep strike one of them early, and then rapid ingress top of 2, and then bring the second one in bottom of 2. So they actually create space for each other. But it feels like what you want to be doing is forcing multiple Battle Shock checks on important enemy models, so that you can then sort of line up kills on them. But it requires the opponent to cooperate with you and not screen them very heavily, which they're probably doing if you're putting a million things in reserve. But then once those Battle Shock checks get failed, we have 2 units of Tyranid Warriors with melee bioweapons. These guys I think they're the best. They're just the straight up best thing about Vanguard Onslaught. I wish they were 1 strength higher. They're only base strength 5, but they have 6 attacks with twin lengths, which is kind of nutty. And they sustained hits when they attach with the winged Tyranid Warrior, Tyranid Prime, and they get +1 to hit if you surprise assault with them. So you can potentially, and they combo a little bit with Death Leaper here, be getting +1 to hit and +1 to wound from surprise assault, if you fail the subsequent Battle Shock check. And once they're +1 to wound, they'll kill basically anything because they're hitting on 2s with sustained. So they're probably converting close to 100% of their attacks. And then wounding on 5s, rerolling, so they're converting like 50% of those. So they're probably handing you somewhere around like 16 to 20 saves at AP2 that you can't use defenses against. Plus, the Tyranid Prime himself will attack, and he has a couple 2 damage attacks too. So the damage is real. They just have to combo out to kill heavily armored stuff. Once they're wounding on 5s base, they'll kill you regardless. So if they're going into something that's base T9 or something, they're absolutely insane. And then you can also on the crackback, if you have kind of pushed the line of scrimmage far enough forward, you can also use there's a lone operative stratagem in the detachment that you can protect them with as long as you have the Tyranid Prime as well. So you can potentially, if your opponent pushes forward into you, you can like leap them with your faster stuff, kill that unit with the bioweapon warriors, and then if your opponent can't get within 12 inches of that unit, protect them to do it again. Which is the kind of pie in the sky, because the downside is that they're very, very easy to kill. But they're not super expensive. It's 215 points for the unit, and they'll kill like basically whatever. If they failed a battle shock check. And again, we're taking lots of stuff to force additional battle shock checks, which is the whole deal. And yeah, I think, obviously I think this list is extremely technical, and it's cool to see that it has success. There's definitely, I guess, like, there's apparently play in these styles of Tyranid lists. This one was 6 and 2 out of 8 rounds, which is very good. But a list like this seems like just sort of like nightmarishly hard to play. So I think it definitely takes a consummate gamer to see success with something like that. But yeah, looking good. Now, beyond that, those were most of the lists that I had picked out to talk about. Again, I didn't sort of pick too much out of the Bristol Supermajor lists because a lot of them were kind of normal. There was a Righteous Crusaders list. This is Ed Watts, who is top 4. He was in 3rd place. So he made the top cut to the top 4. Unfortunately, not everyone who went undefeated made the top cut, but played just sort of like basic old Black Templars in the Righteous Crusaders detachment, not playing Gladius Task Force. So we can talk about a little bit of that. It's not quite as I think unique as like the Space Marine Horde sort of style in Gladius Task Force, but it's definitely a little bit of a different energy from the normal like Ironstorm Spearheads that we've normally been seeing. But if anybody has any other lists that they think I should take a look at, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I will do so. But until then, we'll just break out this guy. I'm gonna pop open my Righteous Crusaders real quick here so that I don't misremember everything. So we have a Castellan with Tannhauser's bonus. I think it's -1 damage, right? Excuse me, half damage. You also get a 5+ Feel No Pain if you are upholding the honor of the Emperor. So the detachment ability from Righteous Crusaders, for those who don't know, and this is why a lot of the Black Templars characters have a bunch of like critical hit manipulation effects, is that you get to choose a Templar vow at the start of the first battle round. So after you see all the deployments and who's going first, and you get that ability for the rest of the game. So you either get lethal hits, sustained hits, a 4+ invulnerable save, and an anti-psyker 4 against psychers, and a 6+ Feel No Pain and +1 leadership. So most of the time, it's a selection between lethal hits or sustained hits. And when you have models like High Marshal Helbrecht, he will trigger your critical hits on a 5-up rather than a 6-up. So his unit will actually trigger whichever one of those two you choose twice as often. Even more so if you are re-rolling from Oaths of Moment. So his unit goes absolutely insane. So we have, let's see, 2 Primaris Crusader squads. So I actually have an independent video about how ridiculous this unit is, by the way, especially in Righteous Crusaders. Especially once they are improving their criticals or they're getting offensive benefits from the detachment, from stratagems. They can get +1 AP and +1 strength potentially. And you can also, if you have a character in the you can switch the or you can add an additional Templar vow on top in your command phase to that unit. So for the round, you can double up on Templar vows, which is cool. So you can get lethal and sustained on critical 5s potentially. But the fact that these guys are 5 base attacks and then get rerolls to hit from Oaths of Moment, plus all of the benefits from these other effects, make them go absolutely insane. They basically kill like anything in the game. They just do sort of trillions and trillions of basic chainsword damage if they're getting like lethal sustained. And you can also, I think, if you have Grimaldus in the unit, you can give them an additional +1 AP, so they can go up to potentially AP 3 with like lethal sustain, or 5-up criticals at AP 2 if you have Helbrecht in the unit. Plus they scout, which I guess doesn't matter if you have the characters in it, but still good. Do I think Admech will get a new detachment or just reworks? I would expect reworks. It seems to me like if they don't touch individual Space Marine chapters, it seems to me like the things I would expect to see changed would be Tyranids and Adeptus Mechanicus, and potentially Adeptus Custodes. There's some other stuff that I think that are kind of like antagonistic to the Pariah Nexus mechanics that I think are going to need to get changed, but that I doubt will. So there's stuff like Chaos Demons, Adeptus Custodes, factions like that feel like they are gonna hurt quite a bit, and the Gene Stealer cults feel like I don't know. I guess their army feels much worse with the new datasheet changes that they got. We'll see how they end up, but they have a good win rate right now, but they have a low play rate, and we'll see how their codex feels. But I doubt that they're gonna change like codex stuff this early. They usually wait at least 6 months to start manipulating with that. So then we're running a bunch of Tactical Marines. This is a little spicier than I expected, to be honest. I love the Tactical Marines. Made a whole video about Tactical Marines, or a couple different videos about Tactical Marines. The benefit that they have is that they get to combat squad. So for 140 points, you get basically a good unit and a bad unit. You sort of get like an 80-point unit of dudes that have like a power fist and a cool, like a combi weapon, and a melta-gun, and a multi-melta, and then you get 5 idiots with bolt guns that do nothing. But those 5 idiots are really good because you can put them in reserve, you can use them as a utility unit, you can screen with them. They're basically like a cheaper scout squad. And if you think of it that way, where for 140 points you're getting a 60-point unit and an 80-point unit, and the 80-point unit's just about worth 80, and the 60-point unit's just about worth 60, but it gives you this huge volume of units, it definitely makes more sense. They feel pretty strong. I think in the past version, they were like 160 points, and they were just or 170 or something. They were massive. They were so expensive. They were trash. But at 140, they do feel pretty competitive. And clearly, we thought the same thing here because we're taking 40 of them. So 4 units Tactical Marines, that's split to 8 units. We then have 2 Assault Intercessor jump pack units that can then go do actions and stuff by themselves. An Incursor squad. That's interesting. I think they're mostly there to combo with all the multi-meltas. So we're rocking like 4 multi-meltas and 4 meltas in those tactical squads. I don't believe that we have any ways to deliver them. No, we're just kind of hanging out. But these guys get scout, which is good, and they give all those guns +1 to hit. So they can make all the multi-meltas hit on 3s rather than 4s, and then you stack that with those a moment, you're actually starting to do some pretty reasonable range damage. At short range, to be fair, but it definitely stacks up. Plus an Infiltrator squad to protect the backline, 3 scout squads as well, so just infinite amounts of utility, and I think what we're going to be doing is basically using all these little 5-man units to kind of body block for the big, huge units. So we have just infinite numbers of dudes who can screen and who can prevent enemies from getting lines of sight that we don't want to on these Primaris Crusader squads. And then using the Primaris Crusader squads to just hammer blow the opponent down into oblivion. It's really interesting to see sort of Black Templars moving to a bit more of a, I guess, a lore-accurate version where they're playing these like hordes of guys running across the table. Not playing the Ironstorm Spearheads, not playing the other stuff. But this list is, I'll take back what I said earlier. This list is much spicier than I gave it credit for. That's very cool. I missed that it was running 40 Tactical Marines. That's rad. Pretty sick. Hopefully Demon Battle Line gets good points cut. Yeah, I think they'll need to, for sure. Demons have to move to taking, like, I think more Fleshhounds and more, like, their lone operative characters. So, like, Mask and Blue Scribes and stuff like that. The downside is that stuff's expensive, so they just, like, lose things, I think, and they end up being, like, less efficient than they were. But that's also the case for a lot of stuff. Like, I think we're going to see more Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, for example, instead of, like, Infiltrators and Scouts, and these tend to be more expensive than Scouts. So you're just paying a premium on your utility units, which I think is just what Pariah Nexus is making people do. But yeah, chat. Those are the cool lists from this weekend. Kind of a last hurrah. I think a pretty interesting last hurrah for Leviathan. It's been a good run. I really enjoyed Leviathan, and I'm sad to see it go. I think that I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm a little worried about Pariah Nexus. It does feel like it's a pair, like it's kind of fixing what ain't broke, I guess. Like, I think the Leviathan format was really good and made a lot of different unit types really viable. And Pariah Nexus feels like it's restricting those a little bit artificially. Hopefully that doesn't end up being the case, but we'll see. You know, like, I don't know how often we're going to see, like, those 40 Tactical Marines or something, like, in a list moving into the future, because I think they would just want to be units of 5 jump pack guys in order to be able to go do actions more efficiently. But I don't know. I might be a crazy person. Titanic Chaos Knights need a points cut. I mean, maybe. Chaos Knights are like pretty well performing right now. I don't think that GW very often approaches factions. And this is like sort of traditionally, right? That like what they've done in the past is that they basically have never approached a faction. They've never really like approached the game from a perspective of internal balancing. They basically they're okay with each faction performing like as a monolith essentially, and having only 1 or 2 viable archetypes if it means that the factions are externally balanced. And that's been the case for a really long time. Like, all the way through 9th edition, they would nerf very specifically the stuff that was performing well, even though there was stuff in those codexes that was demonstrably worse than the other things. I just don't think that they approach the game that way. And we'll see if that changes. We did see some changes in the last data slate that like did some minor adjustments to stuff internally, which did felt good. Like Terminators got their points cuts, Vindicators got their points cuts, which made them much more viable in factions that weren't necessarily struggling at that time. So hopefully we'll see that, but that's traditionally not been how their changes get approached. The other thing that my opponent brought up to me yesterday, and I didn't look for it in the book, but I guess we can take a peek, is that Oh yeah, it's right there. This is like stuff that I missed when I first did my reviews of the leaks. There's a clause down here where the Titanic units essentially count as 2 when deploying. So there's like a little bit of an additional benefit to Titanic units where they get like a small leg up in the deployment step. I don't think it's big, but it definitely makes them feel less outmaneuvered, right? Because being able to counter deploy Titanic stuff by just outnumbering them has been huge in the past. It's been so big. And having a little bit of counteraction to that, I think, is good. So I'm not gonna say that in like the action thing is like gonna wildly change their balance, but they are like thinking about the Titanic stuff being better, I think, a little bit. Tournament organizers will shape the meta even more than Leviathan. What battle line mission rules they decide to include will matter a lot. Maybe. I have a sneaking suspicion that it depends on what's in the Leviathan mission document, or the Leviathan tournament companion. Excuse me, the Pariah Nexus tournament companion. I'm so used to saying Leviathan, I'm stuck in my ways. Because, I mean, that's how it was in Leviathan, and I don't really think that's going to change, to be honest. And I'm really interested to see what that looks like, to be fair. My hope is that they toned down a lot of the sillier mission special rules, and they removed chilling range, like straight up, so that they can play a little bit more, like play around a little bit more with the more interesting things. The battle line ones do feel like kind of a miss to me, though, because they give you like what is largely going to be a very minor buff, like that only comes into play 1 or 2 times a game. The one that's big and that I think is going to be huge based on which missions play it is going to be Raise the Banners High. If you see that one played on a if that one ends up getting added to a like majority of the missions, I think that's going to be like totally transformative. That's the one that's basically scores you an additional secondary objective if you have battle line units. So end of each of your turns, you battle line unit from their army is in range of an objective marker, you raise a banner on that objective, score 1 victory point, and then you can't do it again. But it's so easy to get. So if you have like really fast battle line units, like move 12 like dummies that can run up and jump on objectives, even if you don't like hold the objective through a round, it's just at the end of your turn. So, you know, you have 10 gargoyles or something that move like 30 inches, whatever, 22 inches, let's say, and take an opponent's objective. You raise a banner on that objective, even if they just get vaporized, and that's a permanent victory point that you scored for the rest of the game. And given how low secondary mission scores are this format, I think this is like that getting that 3 or 4 times is just an additional secondary mission card that you have are able to get over your opponent. And this is, I think, has the potential to be like super transformative. If this one gets played a lot, I think we'll see battle line units. The other stuff though is like kind of whatever. Almost none of the battle line like sort of requirements that I have seen have really really actually made me want to play battle line stuff. And for Raise the Banish High, do Cabalites need to leave a Venom? Yeah. I don't know when the Venom ability triggers that end of fight phase. If it's end of turn, you can sequence it, right? But if it's end of fight phase, you get wrecked. Yeah, it is end of fight phase. Womp, womp, womp. Yeah, so you'd absolutely have to jump out with your transports and stuff. And then not get back in, which would be a little bit unfortunate for you. But, like, for the most part, you're trying to do that if you're contesting the objectives anyway. So it's, like, mostly fine. Like, a lot of times you're going to be doing it to your opponent's objectives, right? You get it on, like, your home objective all, like, automatically, essentially. You just, like, start the Cabalites out of the Venom and then jump them in at the, like, bottom of the first turn. And then you already scored the thing. Bottom of your first turn, I guess. And then you can do that to, like, one or two other objectives that might be safe. And then you're mostly, like, running them out and then disembarking the Cabalites to out-OC enemies on objectives. And then you're raising the banners when you do that. So I think you'll get it passively, like, at least 4 times. The Cabalite ability doesn't count them as holding the objective, though, right? It just also applies to transports that they're embarked in. Yeah. It's just that if their transport controls an objective marker, then you sticky it. It doesn't actually count the Cabalite warriors as being in range of that objective marker. The unit has to physically be within 3 inches of the 40mm puck to count it. Which is too bad for transport-based lists, but I don't know. Get wrecked to transports, you're stupid. What's up, Inky? How's it going, girl? You want to come say hi to chat? You want to come up? No? Okay. All right, baby girl. What a cutie pie you are. All right, chats. Well, I don't know if I have much else to talk about. We're, again, it's a little bit of a, I don't know, quiet week, I guess, for Tactical Tuesday, because we are staring down the barrel of Pariah Nexus. So hopefully I'll get to stream maybe Thursday if we see a data slate update and any more info about the Nexus season. So I will be live streaming if that stuff does release this week. The scuttlebutt is that it's coming out this week. And if it does, I imagine that the time would be Thursday. And if we does so, then we'll have a whole conflab about it. Transports OP enough not to be need them make them any more mandatory? Yeah, for sure. 100%. 100p, chat. I don't know. So I had a game scheduled after this over on Twitch, but it fell through, and I kind of want to play another one, but also I do need to edit videos. I do need to actually pay my bills by releasing videos. So I'm not sure what to do, chat. I have 2 games scheduled tomorrow. I should probably not stream a game. So I will be live tomorrow morning over on the Twitchies. Everybody come hang out with me, please. I'll be at 9 a.m. US Eastern Time. So what are we? 16 hours from right now I'm going to be playing some Chaos Demons in Pariah Nexus. I don't really like my list. I think my list needs some tweaking, but it's not the end of the world. But it's a tough matchup, so we'll see if I can win it. Don't have high hopes, but I'm crossing my fingers. Stream the edits. Great. That's what I did. I definitely need people to watch me stutter, edit out all the words that I stutter through my recordings. And I will be live after that with a pod finals. That's going to be Orcs versus, I have the matchup in my calendar, and then I forgot what it is. It is Orcs versus Tau. It's Montka Tau playing against Orcs. So, I don't know. It should be fun. Cool to see Tau at the finals table. We have a couple spicy finals coming up. There's a... shit, what's the matchup? It's really cool. It's... I'm going to look it up. The other finals game that got paired this week was... Oh no, what have I done? Oh, I lost it. Oh, Deathwatch versus Space Wolves. I don't know if it's Stormlance. It is Gladius Task Force Space Wolves, chat, with a Grav Cannon Longfang squad versus a Black Spear Task Force. So here's my favorite thing. As a closing thought. My favorite thing about end of season T5S2 is that, and we are ending the season next week, is the 24th is the final day of the season. And then we'll be cutting to top 16 for the Invitational. My favorite thing about end of season T5S2 is that people just like start throwing shit at the wall. So like a lot of people are less into their like super try hard, like, you know, top 5 medalists or whatever, or like, you know, bandwagoning on whatever's new, and they're just playing like a bunch of random stuff they think is cool because they don't necessarily need to qualify. They don't necessarily need points to qualify. Either they're top 16 or not. They're probably no by the end of the last month of the season or so. So we see a lot of like absolutely wild pod finals, which is super cool, and I'm super exciting. Play Helldivers instead. I'll play Helldivers later. What if we streamed Helldivers? We can stream Helldivers. All right. If the Discord Helldiver team is cool with it, then I will stream our Helldivering. That's what I'll do. Anyway, chat. That's gonna be it for me today. Not a little bit of a shorter stream, but again, it's end of season stuff, so that makes sense. And I'll see you potentially later on Twitch or tomorrow morning. Either one of those. So I'll see you then. Cheers, everyone. Remember, keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming, and I'll see you in the next one.